Hello students, this is Veena, Assistant Professor in the Department of English, Institute of Aeronautical Engineering. Today we are going to learn about clauses and the phrases with their usage. What is the difference between a clause and a phrase, and how is that we are going to use clauses and phrases in the way of our communication, and how is that they are going to contribute in the betterment and effectiveness in creating the communication skills more and more better, effective and accurate. Try to understand that each sentence must be a complete sentence with a subject and a phrase and with an activity of action which it has intended to do. But if a phrase is used, it is not a complete sentence, but it is having sense to render the message what it is equipped with. But on the other hand, a clause has both subject and the predicate. Now let us try to understand the difference between the clauses and the phrases and their usage and their role in the way of formation of your sentences in English communication, especially when it comes to oral communication and also in the way of written communication. What are its uses and how is that you are going to integrate these clauses or phrases in the way of your communication is going to be the topic of today. Let us get started. A sentence. Let us try to understand the definition of sentence before we try to understand what is a clause or a phrase. Only when you understand what is a sentence, you will be able to differentiate between a clause and a phrase. Now, a sentence is a group of words containing a subject and a predicate. That is, a subject is must the person who is doing the work, and the predicate, the work done by the subject. These two are the essential parts to complete a sentence and expressing a complete thought. She is eating an apple. She is eating an apple. It has subject, it has predicate. Now, who is the subject? She. What is she doing? Eating an apple. The complete action which has been carried out by the subject. So, therefore, it is a sentence. A sentence contains both subject and predicate and it is complete in sense. So, therefore, it is called a sentence. In order for this definition to be helpful, you must be able to recognize a subject and a predicate and understand what is meant by a complete thought. Now try to understand when I say that I'm going. Is it rendering the meaning or having a sense in it? Of course there is a sense in that. I'm going. Isn't it? It's a phrase. It's an incomplete sentence. But where are you going? Is it a sentence? No, it's not a sentence because it is not having complete sense in it. I'm saying that I'm going, but I'm not informing you where am I going, how am I going, or whatever the requirements of the sentence to be completed. So, a sentence must have a subject and a predicate and has its complete sense to complete it. So, therefore, that is called a sentence. A sentence has a subject. What is that subject? What or whom the sentence is about. About, you're talking about a person, a animal, a location, a place, anything. That is a subject. Of whom you're talking about is a subject. And a predicate. Predicate is the action that takes place with the subject. The predicate tells what the subject does or is what is done by the subject. Work done by the subject or what is does by the subject. The action what is carried by a subject is your predicate. So, now the differentiation is subject is the person who does the work and predicate is the work done by the person. The simple subject is a noun or pronoun. Mostly this subject will be either noun or pronoun. The complete subject is this noun or pronoun and the words that modify it. The complete subject is when you are using this noun or pronoun in the way of modifying it and rendering the message which you ought to tell it to the other person in the way of your communication. So that is called a sentence. Now, as we come to know about what is a sentence in the complete way, complete sense, now try to understand what is a phrase and what is a clause. Here, phrases and clauses are the building blocks of sentences. They are part and parcel of sentences. They may not be complete sentences, but they are part and parcel of the sentence. I am going. He's running. Is it a complete sentence? He's running towards what? It's not having the complete sense. I am doing. What am I doing? Of course, it has its sense. Now, phrases are group of words that act as a part of speech but cannot stand alone. Phrases cannot stand alone. Those act as the parts of speech but they cannot stand alone. The words in a phrase act together so that the phrase itself function as a single parts of speech. It will give an indication of a single parts of speech. It is not complete in sense and it is dependent. It is not independent. For example, phrases can function as nouns, verbs, adjectives and adverbs. If you understand how different types of phrase functions, you can avoid misusing or misplacing them, leaving them dangling in the sentence. That means we unknowingly use those phrases in the sentences in the way of our communication. Most of the time we do this mistake while writing the notes or articles, whatever you do. You try to unintentionally do this. You try to replace the words with phrases which are completely insensible. So, we should not do this mistake. Try to understand the relevance and try to understand the true meaning of a phrase. Then, clauses are a group of words that have a subject and a predicate. Clauses have both subject and a predicate. They can stand alone. They can do alone. That is, they have their independence in rendering the meaning to that particular sentence. Independent clauses express a complete thought as it is in a sentence and can stand alone as a sentence. We have both dependent clauses and independent clauses. Whereas independent clauses can stand alone as a sentence in the form of a sentence. Subordinate clauses can act as parts of speech but depend on the rest of the sentence to express the complete thought. To express the complete thought, they depend on the rest of the sentence, but of course they also cater the needs as a parts of speech in that particular sentence. Here, a phrase is a group of words that express a concept and is used as a unit within a sentence. Phrases are the units which acts or expresses a concept. 8 common types of phrases we have are noun phrases, verb phrases, gerunds, infinitive, appositive, participle, prepositional and absolute. These are the 7 kinds of phrases we come across in our English language. Now let us take a look over the sectional phrases. Now let us talk about what is a noun phrase, how is it catered to the needs of completion of our sentences, and what is the role played by a noun phrase. A noun phrase consists of a noun and all its modifiers. Modifiers are like adjectives or those which modify the sense of the noun, isn't it? Now let us see through some examples and understand it in more detail. The bewildered tourist was lost. The bewildered tourist was lost. The lost puppy was a wet and stinky dog. See this? A wet and stinky dog. It is a phrase. A wet and stinky dog. But it is not a complete sentence. It is catering the need of a unit of the sentence. It has sense, isn't it? A wet and stinky dog. That which is wet and stinky, the dog. It is a description. We are modifying the dog. Dog, the look of the dog, isn't it? But here it is playing the role of a phrase. Here the lost puppy. If you see the lost puppy, the puppy which is lost, it is having meaning, but it is not complete. The lost puppy, here we are using adjective. Lost, it has lost. The lost puppy was a wet and stinky dog. The way this is rendered is, these are the separate unit of phrases which are combined together form a complete sentences. Now, the flu clinic. The flu clinic has seen many cases of infectious disease. Here, the flu clinic can be a phrase, noun phrase. It was a story as old as time. It was a story as old as time. Next, the sports car drove the long and winding road. Saturday became a cool, wet afternoon. See here, a cool, wet afternoon. This is again used as a phrase. Here, in this way, we are going to use noun phrases. Now, let us try to understand what are verb phrases. Verb phrases consists of a verb and all its modifiers. That which add more meaning to that verb, that work, what you pursue or what you do. Here are some examples. He was sitting for the rain to stop. He was waiting for the rain to stop. Sorry. He was waiting for the rain to stop. Was waiting for the rain to stop. Isn't it? What is the work done? What is the action? The rain to stop. The work. Isn't it? Next. She was upset when it didn't toil. He was upset when it didn't toil. The action is continued with the modifier. Next, you have been sleeping for a long time. You have been sleeping for a long time. Have been sleeping for a long time. This is the phrase. Here, how is it using? How is it been usage? It is adding the modifier to the verb have been. Said, have been sleeping for a long time. Have been sleeping. How is it sleeping? For a long time. We are modifying the action of that person. Next, might enjoy a massage. He might enjoy a massage. If you take this word, this phrase from here to here, might enjoy a massage. That is having the meaning, but it is a phrase. It is dependent on he. But here we are making use of this verb phrase with the modification of might enjoy a massage. Next, he was eager to eat dinner. Was eager to eat dinner. Was eager to eat. To eat is the action. Was eager is added to this action of eating the dinner. So, this is your verb phrase. Like this, we are going to use verb phrases in the sentences. Next, a gerund phrase. A gerund phrase is simply a noun phrase that starts with the gerund. Now see, taking my dog for a walk is fun. This is just a statement. Okay, how is it starting? Taking my dog for a walk is fun. You ended up with is fun. But of course, it can have its own meaning, sense of meaning. What is the sense of meaning of this sentence? Taking my dog for a walk. It has sense. Of course, it is not complete, but it has sense. Next, walking in the rain can be difficult. That is, it is starting, the beginning of the sentence is the gerund, which caters the need of the completion of that sentence with its expression. One more. Strolling along a beach at sunset is romantic. Getting a promotion is exciting. Signing autographs take time. Going for ice creams is a real treat, isn't it? See all these examples where the beginning has started with a gerund. That means a statement which gives a expression of thought to fill up that complete sentence. In this way, we are going to use our gerunds. Next, an infinitive phrase is a noun phrase that begins with an infinitive verb. It begins with a verb. Let us see how. To make lemonade, you have to start with lemons too. Here we are starting the phrase with to. Starting the sentence with to. To make lemonade, you have to start with lemon. To start with lemon. To make lemonade. Isn't it? To see the stage. See here. To see the stage. To make a statement. To see Niagara Falls. To get his priorities in order. All these things are the infinitive verbs which works as the infinitive phrases in the way of completing that particular sentence. So this is the role played by the infinitive phrases, which verbs of which comes under the phrases. Here, some more examples. My favorite pastime. Needlepoint surprises some people. My favorite pastime. It has that sense. It has that sense. My favorite pastime. Next, an Arabian. Her horse, her Arabian was her pride and joy. Here, this is your phrase which we use and which has its own meaning. Then, my wife, the love of my life, is also my best friend. You are modifying the noun phrase. That is where it is more applicable and it looks more beautiful and gives that authenticity to that particular statement. Then, a cheetah, the fastest land animal. Cheetah. Who is cheetah? The fastest land animal. We are giving the description which has its annotation, its description, its importance, isn't it? Next, my idea, a recycling bin for the office, was accepted by the boss. Whose idea is that? What is the idea? That is a recycling bin for the office. This is a phrase which has its own meaning, but it cannot stand alone. Then, prepositional phrase. It begins with a preposition and can act as a noun, an adjective and an adverb. Let us see what are those. The book was on the table. It starts with on. It starts with the prepositions. Prepositional phrases starts with the prepositions. Begins with the prepositions. On the tables. Under the chair, upon the shelf, like that. By the brook, over the rainbow, in the dark or night, between a rock and a hard place, for a while, strawberries and cream, of strawberries and cream, against all odds. So, like this, we are going to use the prepositional phrases to complete our sentence and to render that sentence to form up the complete structure of that essentials of the sentence formation in the way of written communication as well as the oral communication. Then, absolute phrase. Now, what is this absolute phrase? Has a subject but not an action verb. It has a subject, but it will not have an action verb. So, it cannot stand alone. It is not going to stand alone. It has only a subject, but not an action verb. It modifies the whole sentence, not just a noun. It will modify the sentence, but not the noun. For example, his tail between his legs. His tail between his legs. The dog walked out the door. Next, picnic basket in hand. She set off for her date. See here, the dog walked out the door. It is a complete sentence with all the sense. It is having a subject and a predicate. Here you see his tail between his legs. The dog. Here this is the description given to the dog. It cannot stand alone. If we just say his tail between his legs, it's incomplete. It is insensible. We are using here to exaggerate or give over the more description of the dog. If we are not using here the dog, there is no meaning for this phrase here. So, here we are not talking about any action verb. We are talking about only the noun. Next, she set off for date, picnic basket in hand. Who is having picnic basket in hand? She set off for the date. Set off for the date is a complete sentence with a subject and a predicate and with all the essence of meaning in it. But picnic basket in hand, it has meaning. But what is it? Whom is it related to? How is it completed? Is more important. Then, the guys attacked the pile of nachos. Their fingers getting the last bit of cheese off the plate. The guys attacked the pile of nachos. Their fingers getting the last bit of cheese off the plate. That means it is referred to the guys. Next, their heads hanging down. The whole group apologized. Their heads. Whose heads? Group. It is related here. Here we are not talking anything about the action verbs. Here we are talking only relating it to the nouns. Their possibility of modifying or exaggerating the content about that particular noun. The entire team, their uniforms muddy and stained. Whose uniform muddy and stained? The entire teams. In this way, we are going to make the absolute phrases usage. Then, dependent. Now, let us try to understand what are clauses. We understood what are noun phrases, verb phrases, prepositional phrases, infinite phrases, gerund phrases, and also absolute phrases. The main work, the main usage of these phrases are they cater in the structure of the formation of the sentences as one units. They cannot stand alone, but they cater that meaning to fulfill the statement complete, isn't it? Now let us try to understand what are clauses. Now clauses, independent and dependent clauses are building blocks of sentences. They build your sentences. They help in uplifting and making your sentences qualitative. This is the usage of your clauses. A single independent clause expresses a complete thought and can be a sentence by itself. These independent clauses can stand alone and they can express the complete thought of expression. They do not depend on anything. So therefore, these clauses help in elevating the sentences, help in molding the sentences more effectively and appropriately. Next, dependent clauses don't express a complete thought. They don't express a complete thought, but they add more information to a sentence. Like phrases, even dependent clauses cannot stand by themselves. They add meaning to the sentence structure, but if you are splitting them or separating them from that sentence, those clauses cannot stand independently. When you join independent and dependent clauses with conjunction and proper punctuation, they create compound and complex sentences that are fun and engaging to read. So, here try to understand the difference between the independent clauses and the dependent clauses. Dependent clauses like phrases, they cannot stand alone, but they cater to the meaning of the sentence formation. But on the other side, independent clauses can stand independently by themselves, and also they render the complete sense of meaning to the sentences. Now, an independent clause is a full sentence, that is a complete sentence. It does not need to be joined to any other clauses because it contains all the information necessary to complete a sentence. Now, independent clauses have three major components. What are those? One is subject, the other one is predicate, and a complete thought. It has three aspects as a complete sentence also have. What is that? Subject, predicate, and a complete thought. The completion of the thought, the completion of the message, the completion of the information of that particular sentence. Then it is called a complete sentence. Next, examples of independent clauses. Let us see. Jim reads. Now, Jim is the subject, reads is the verb. Jim reads. Of course, it is catering the need. Sarah teaches. Sarah teaches. Mark plays. Mark plays. So, these are all the clauses, independent clauses. Then, if you add direct objects to these sentences, they are still independent clauses. If you add, then also they are still independent clauses. How? If we are adding newspaper for this, here we wrote Jim reads. If you are adding, Jim reads the newspaper, isn't it? Next, Sarah teaches. Sarah teaches high school. Next, Mark plays. Here, Mark plays basketball. Though you are adding some direct objects, you will feel this independent clauses stand by themselves. They can stand alone as a sentence, stand independently, sensing all the complete sense which is relevance for the enhancement and rendering of the message of that particular thought. Next, dependent clauses. In contrast, a dependent clause is not a complete sentence. It is not a complete sentence. They are sometimes known as subordinate clauses, that which help in the structure of the sentences but cannot stand alone. As their name implies, these clauses depend on independent clauses to clearly express ideas. Here are some few examples. Let us try to understand with the examples. When I grow up, just try to understand this sentence. When I grow up. What? What when I grow up? It is incomplete sentence. Okay. Next. Although he sings well. There is a meaning, but it is showing the incompletion of the sentence. Isn't it? Next. The mouse that was hiding. The mouse that was hiding. Is it complete? No. Is it have sense? Yes, of course it has sense, but it is not complete. It is not giving us a complete idea. What else? What happened after the mouse was hiding? Isn't it? Next. To turn these independent clauses into full sentences, you need to combine them with dependent clauses. To make these dependent clauses complete, we have to add independent clauses which will stand by themselves. For example, now here, what is the dependent clause? When I grow up, I want to be a doctor. I want to be a doctor. Here it is when I grow up, which is incomplete but has sense. But when it comes to, when we add an independent clause, what has its sense? When I grow up, I want to be a doctor. In the same way, although she sings well, he hates karaoke. That means he don't like it. Then, I searched through the basement and found the mouse that was hiding. Here we use the mouse that was hiding. If you have added this complete, that is the independent clause, it is having the same sense of meaning to it. Next, in the first two examples, the independent clause come before the independent clause. The two clauses are separated by the commas. In first two sentences, the independent clause come after the dependent clause and they are separated with a comma. Keep this in mind. Whenever the independent clause comes first in a complex sentence, it is followed by a comma. Note this point. It is important. Whenever the independent clause comes first in the complex sentences, it has to be separated by a comma. Next, how to combine these clauses? What is the criteria? What are the rules? Maybe what are the instructions which you have to follow to combine the clauses? When you want to write a sentence that's more than one independent clause, you need to combine clauses. Every sentence you write includes at least one independent clause. See that whenever you write any sentence, it must have at least one independent clause such that it can stand alone and cater the need of the information passing to the other person and gives the clarity over that conversation. The other clauses in your sentence determine how you can combine them with your independent clauses or the subordinate clauses or coordinative conjunctions or a semicolon or a colon. You can use it. But see that there is an independent clause in every sentence. You can use more subordinate clauses to make it more effective with the usage of colon, conjunctions, any sort of things. But remember, every sentence must have a independent clause. Now, take a look over these compound sentences. I love drinking soda, but I know it's bad for my teeth. Here, this is independent clause. I love drinking soda, but I know it's bad for my teeth. But I know it's bad for my teeth. We are adding it with the conjunction but. Next, Maria loved hosting dinner parties. Her friends enjoyed her cooking. Isn't it? This is again independent clause. Here we are using a colon to separate and give over the more meaning to the sentence. We danced until the band finished playing. We danced until the band finished playing. They played until midnight. They played until midnight. Again, usage of the colon there. When all our clauses are independent clauses, you can combine them with coordinating conjunction. When both the clauses are independent, you can add them with the conjunction. If there is one subordinate clause and the independent clause, you can use colon, semicolon, comma to separate the sentences. Here, what could be your coordinating conjunctions? For, and, nor, but, or, at, so. These are the coordinative conjunction which you can use. Now, if you need to combine dependent clauses with an independent clause, you need a subordinate conjunction. You need a conjunction which will help you to coordinate and mix match these two. There is a lot more subordinative conjunctions that there are coordinating conjunctions and they can be divided into categories according to their functions. We have complex sentences, we have compound complex sentences where you are trying to include the independent clauses and one or more dependent clauses is complex sentence, and independent clauses and at least one dependent clause is a compound complex sentence. If either of these sentences, the subordinative conjunction signifies the beginning of independent clause. For example, the fun can begin now that the clown is here. The fun can begin now that the clown is here. The clown is here is also a complete sentence, and the fun can begin. You can also say that, and we are using a that here, conjunction. While we slept, the plane reached its destination. Here we are using comma because this is the subordinate clause, that which is cannot stand alone. The plane reached its destination. It is an independent clause. Before you leave, remember to take a goodie bag. The pool is open daily until the temperature drops. See the way they are attached and how they are useful in the way of rendering that communication at that point of time. Then, subordinative conjunction aren't the only way to add a dependent clause to a sentence. We have relative pronouns or relative adverbs, isn't it? Relative pronouns include that, whose, whom, who, which. The guy who shouted all night. See the way we are using the sentence. The guy who shouted all night. We don't know the name of the person. Who shouted all night? Made it impossible to fall asleep. He is the reason for me to not sleep. Isn't it? Next. That restaurant with arcade. Pax. That restaurant with arcade. What is the name of the restaurant? Pax. How is it described? With the arcade is the best restaurant in the town. So, this is where how we are going to understand the pronouns with the clauses and also understand how we are going to attach and meet the structural needs of a sentence in the formation of proper complete sentences. Now, relative adverbs. Here, subordinative conjunctions aren't not only way to add a dependent clause. Dependent clauses can also start with relative pronouns. They also can start with relative pronouns or relative adverbs. Now, what are these relative pronouns? Include that, those, whom, who, and which. The guy shouted all night. We have already discussed this. So, try to understand the relevance and try to understand its importance in the way of the communication and structuring your sentences. Now, relating adverbs include where, when, how, and why. Here are few examples. Try to understand. The traffic jam is the reason why we are late. The traffic jam is the reason why we are late. Next, I have no idea when my hose stopped working. I have no idea when my hose stopped working. This is dependent on each other to give the completion of the sentence. Here, try to understand the difference between the clauses. Try to understand how phrases are the units of the formation of the sentences and how accurately we can use and develop the proper format in the way of making a sentence structure effective and qualitative. So, try to practice the usage of phrases and clauses such that you can make your communication more better and effective. Thank you.
Like, share and subscribe. Hit the bell icon for more updates.